greetings, Iain from RTO here. Welcome to another classic album review. And as you know, in the month of May we have gone through the decades, so we've reached the 1980s. So today we're going to look at an album by Talking Heads. Talking Heads, of course, formed in 1975 in New York by David Byrne, whose vocals and lead guitar, Chris Franz on the drums, Tina Weymouth on the bass, and Jerry Harrison keyboards and guitars. Now, they have been described as one of the most critically acclaimed bands of the 80s. Talking Heads have helped to pioneer the new wave music by combining those elements of punk, art, rock and funk and world music with an anxious, clean-cut image. They met as students at the Rhode Island School of Design, got involved in the punk scene, and the rest is history. So this is the album we're going to look at is the fourth album, Remain in Light. Now this was released in 1980 on 8th of October, a day before my birthday, and it was recorded at the Compass Point Studios in the Bahamas and some in Philadelphia between July and August of 1980, and it was the last album that Brian Eno produced for Talking Heads. So we got David Byrne on lead vocals, keyboards, guitars, bass, percussion, vocal and arrangements, Jerry Harrison keyboards, percussion and backing vocals, Tina Weymouth keyboards, bass and percussion and backing vocals, got Chris Franz on drums and backing vocals. Brian Eno does additional music. Adrian Bello from King Crimson plays guitars and synthesizers. Robert Palmer does percussion. Jose Rossi percussion. John Hassel trumpets and horns, and Nona Hendricks on backing vocals. So the first track on this one is called Born Under Punches, in brackets The Heat Goes On. I really like this. It's got some great funky guitar on it. Interesting vocal from David. He had a unique singing style. It's a pretty good track. Crosseyed and Painless. Love this track. One of my favourites on the album. Great sound. It's an unusual sound, but really good. The Great Curve, very Latino, but it's not one of my favourite tracks on the album. It's sort of all over the place for me. Then we get Once in the Lifetime. This is my favourite song on here. Now, a lot of people don't like this song, but I remember this song coming out and I thought, wow, this is different. I really like this song, always have. House in Motion, a really interesting track. I love the melody on this, don't get me wrong, but it's David's spoken delivery on it. It just didn't work for me. Not a particular favourite track of mine. Seen and Not Seen. This is an album where Talking Heads was sort of changing their sort of style a little bit. It's not too bad, this one. Listening Ween, sort of got a bit of a reggae feel. That's what I call Afro punk. It's funk, Afro funk. It's different. It's got a bit of reggae and funk mixed together. Yeah. And the last track on here is called The Overload. It's a very atmospheric track. I quite like this. The weird and wonderful vocal delivery of David. It's got a lot of this atmospheric sound blends well within the track. So, when this came out, one of the old critics think, well, it did attain widespread acclaim from media outlets. Ken Tucker from the Rolling Stone felt it was a brave and absorbing attempt to locate a common ground in the early 80s. Divergent and often hostile music genres, he concluded. Remain in the Light yields scary, funny music to which you can dance and think. Robert Christgau of The Village. Here we go. He said that in David Byrne conquers his fear of music visionary. Afro-funk synthesis, clear-eyed, detached, almost mystical optimism. Michael Culp of the Daily Collegian said the three deserve the tag as classic like the band's 3 previous full-length releases, while John Rockwell, writing in the New York Times, suggested that it confirmed that Talking Heads' position as America's most venturous rock band, and Sally Robinson sounds praised the record's innovation, where Billboard wrote just about every LP Talking Heads has released in the last 4 years would wind up on virtually every critic's best list. So let's have a look what the scores on the doors. All Music gave it a 5 stars, Chicago Tribune 4, Christian Raku Guide A, the Irish Times gave it 5, Mojo 5, Pitchfork 10 out of 10, Rolling Stone 10 out of 10, and Spin 10 out of 10, Uncut 10 out of 10. How did it do in the charts? Got to number 6 in Australia and number 8 in New Zealand, UK 21 and America 19. Gold in 3 places: Canada, United Kingdom and the United States. Okay, my spin on this. Well, although a popular album, and it is it's definitely a classic, but personally I think there are better ones than this in the catalogue. In 1980 the music scene was changing quite a lot. It's still got bits of their past and their experimental times. It's got 1 or 2 highlights on it. Obviously Once in a Lifetime is a classic song. But I'm not going to say exactly where this would fit, because I will eventually be ranking the Talking Heads. But all I'll say is this is definitely not my number 1 Talking Heads album. I think it's a little bit too diverse in places. It hasn't got a natural flow to it, personally. I know there's lots of people think this is the best thing, and fair play, but for me it's not their best album. But I will give it an RTO ranking of 7 out of 10. Okay, next week is the last one of May. It's the last Monday in May. So we're going to look at a 90s classic album. But tomorrow we have got another Gary Newman. We're going to look at some of the collaboration work. A lot of it was soundtrack work. So I think I thought I'd give that some love, because it's pretty good, these soundtrack work. And also tomorrow, retro ranking, with the FA Cup final only a couple of weeks away. I thought I would dive into the terrible football squad songs I used to put out for Cup final week, or when they got to the Cup final. So we're going to look at some FA Cup songs in the top 10, and then the honourable mentions are other songs that are football songs that are not related to the FA Cup final, that I thought that needed a bit of shout as well. So that's all coming up tomorrow. All it remains me to say is have a good day, and keep watching. We've nearly got up. We're up to 95253 subscribers, so we're not far off 1,000, and we'll have a big push. Okay then, bye for now. See you tomorrow.